I still remember the night it happened clear as if it were playing on a movie screen in my head. The dining room lights were soft, bouncing off crystal wine glasses, and I was carrying a tray that felt heavier with every step. 10 hours into my shift, my black heels were chewing up my feet, and my stiff white blouse was sticking to my skin. But in a place like the Briarwood, you didn't show cracks. You moved like part of the decor, polished, silent, invisible. Invisible, except to table 14 that night. 4 men in sharp suits had been nursing their wine for over an hour, laughing louder each round. The one at the head, I'd later learn his name, was Jonathan Pierce, tech millionaire, had been glancing at me all evening. Not the kind of look that flattered. No, his eyes carried calculation. And something colder. I brought over fresh bread with my best professional smile. "More wine, gentlemen?" I asked, warm voice hiding the exhaustion crawling up my spine. Jonathan barely looked at me before turning to his friends and switching to rapid German. I knew enough to catch it, but I kept my face blank. "Look at her," he said, smirking. "Probably never been outside this city. Thinks those shoes make her look sophisticated." His buddies roared with laughter. Another chimed in, still in German. "That accent so common. Doubt she even finished high school." Jonathan nodded like he was warming up to a show. "These service workers are all the same. No education, no culture. Probably thinks we're talking about stocks." My hand tightened on the wine bottle, but I poured steady. I'd been in fine dining long enough to be furniture with a pulse. But there's a limit to swallowing poison. Then one of them said, "Jonathan, ask her something in German." Watch her nod like she understands. Jonathan's eyes lit with mischief. He looked me dead in the face, still in German, and said, "We were just talking about how refreshing it is to meet someone so authentic, so representative of her background. We find your simplicity quite entertaining." They waited for me to give that blank, polite nod to confirm every ugly assumption. Instead, I set down the bottle, straightened up, and met his gaze. The exhaustion in my eyes shifted into something sharper. "How refreshing indeed, Mr. Pierce," I answered in German, so fluent it sliced through the air to encounter such authentic ignorance so proudly displayed. It was like pulling a plug. Their laughter drained away. Thomas nearly choked on his wine. "You speak," Jonathan started. "Oh, fluently," I cut in. "Masters in German literature from Columbia. Thesis on Rilke. 3 years in Vienna studying classical violin. Sundays spent debating Kant's philosophy with my host family. But please do go on about my lack of culture. I swear you could hear forks pause mid-air around the room. And for your information, I added my grandmother came from Bavaria. She taught me that a person's true character shows in how they treat those they think are beneath them." Silence. Heavy, awkward, glorious silence. Jonathan's confident smirk was gone. What replaced it was something I hadn't expected. Guilt, maybe even shame. He stood, adjusted his jacket. "Miss Mara Ellison," I said, still professional. "Mara, I owe you an apology. A real one." I studied him, saw that flicker of sincerity. My grandmother's voice whispered in my head. Sometimes grace is giving someone the chance to do better. "Apology accepted," I said quietly. But he shook his head. "No, an apology isn't enough. Would you allow me to take you to dinner tomorrow as a guest, to show you the respect you deserve?" Every bone in me wanted to say no, but I heard myself say, "All right, tomorrow." The next evening, I opened my door to find him standing there, no arrogance this time, holding white roses. His eyes scanned my tiny apartment, landing on the photo of me on stage at Carnegie Hall, violin in hand. "That's you." "3 years ago," I said. Something in his face shifted. The man who'd mocked me now looked almost in awe. Dinner was at a place so exclusive most people wouldn't get in within a year. At first, conversation was polite. Then it cracked open. He told me how success had made him arrogant, how he'd stopped seeing people just positions. I told him about my mother's battle with lupus, how I worked 3 jobs to keep her treatment going. He listened, really listened, then said, "Let me help." I almost refused, but then I thought of my mom, her tired eyes. Pride is expensive. I nodded. All right. A week later, I got a call from her doctor, every treatment paid in full. All of it. I didn't have to guess who. Jonathan didn't stop there. "The New York Philharmonic has auditions next month. I made a call. They want to hear you play." I froze. "You got me an audition, I got you a chance," he said. "The rest is yours." I played my heart out that day. When the final note hung in the air, the conductor smiled. "We'd like to offer you the position." I said yes, through tears. Jonathan clapped from the back, beaming like he'd won something himself. From then on, our lives tangled together. We worked side by side, running an arts foundation he'd been planning. Now I was executive director. We funded musicians, painters, dancers, and somewhere between board meetings and late-night dinners, we fell in love. Not a fairy tale kind of love, the kind built on seeing each other's worst and still choosing to stay. Months later, he proposed, not in some grand public way, but in his living room, hands shaking, eyes steady. "Mara, will you marry me?" I said yes without hesitation. On our wedding day after the vows, I told him something I'd kept buried. That night at the restaurant after his invitation, I'd researched him. His companies, his interviews, even his family. At first, I planned to play him a little, make him see my worth. He surprised me again. "You didn't deceive me. You outsmarted me. And then you loved me. That's all that matters." We built a life from there. The foundation expanded nationwide. I played sold-out concerts. My mom's health stabilized. And yet sometimes over coffee in our kitchen, I think about that night at table 14. How easily I could have just walked away. How easily he could have stayed the same man. Instead, a moment of humiliation became the turning point for both our lives. So here's what I'll leave you with. Do you think people can truly change? Or was the man I met at table 14 always in there waiting for the right push? And if you were me that night, would you have given him that chance or walked away? Tell me in the comments, because I have a feeling this is where the real debate begins.